We're back in business. The boys are back in town. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Strictly Fighters podcast. I am Jason Madewell, your host, aka J Master J, aka J Money, aka Money Madewell. We're going to switch things up a little bit this episode. We have a new outline. Obviously, with the feedback that we are constantly getting from all of our listeners and our viewers, we're taking that into account. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this episode. I'm going to give you a quick outline so that you know what's coming. We've got a couple of new features that stem from some of the feedback that we've got. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to play a fun little game. It's called the Pound for Pound Martial Artist Legends.
You made that sound very, very suspicious.
I was thinking of Saw. When Jigsaw, yeah. I want to play a game.
You made some people stressed.
Anyway, it's called the Pound for Pound Martial Artist Legends League. Basically, what we're going to do, super fun, is we have a list of 50 of the top or greatest martial artists of all time. And we have a random matchup generator. And every week at the very beginning, we're going to kick off this random matchup generator. It's going to spit out two names and we're going to quickly discuss who we think would win in a no-holds-barred pound-for-pound fight and why. Then we're going to move into a question that we actually had from one of our listeners. It came from our mate Mtenjwa Mtolo. He wants to know what the differences are and how the two martial arts stack up. BJJ versus Aikido. Super interesting. And again, guys, if you guys have questions, if you want us to discuss certain topics, hit us with them. We welcome this. Happy to do it. So we'll dive into that a little bit and see what's what there. Tenj was a Taekwondo. He trained in Taekwondo. I don't know how far he got. Also loves martial arts. And then we're going to get onto the big news this week, the confirmation of the super fight, Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. Massive. Another super fight. Okay, I'm joking. I'm lying. It's not a super fight, but super interesting for us to discuss. The YouTuber and celebrity Jake Paul taking on former UFC welterweight contender Ben Askren. We'll get into that. That's going to be fun. And then at the end, what we're going to do is finish off with another new feature, another short, light-hearted feature called the Pound for Pound Celebrity Deathmatch, which is in essence similar to the random matchup generator of the greatest martial artists of all time, except this time it's celebrities who have either dabbled in martial arts or are actually bona fide martial artists, including a whole bunch of actors. But yeah, that's what we're going to finish off with.
Yeah, excited. And
Right,
this is going to generate a lot of conversation. I hope so. I want to hear what people have to say about these.
Yeah, especially if Tom Cruise goes up against Selena Gomez. It's going to be a very interesting conversation.
I'll take Selena.
Yeah, the BJJ master. Let's do this. All right, cool. Let's.
I'm going to hit us with our first tournament draw. We're doing this live so that no one can go and research anything and come up with predetermined arguments. This is all on the spot.
It's all right. I know everything.
Are we ready?
Coming out of our asses. Yeah.
Here comes the draw. 3, 2, 1. Oh, so we have Muhammad Ali versus Floyd Mayweather.
Oh, well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Come on. Okay. Saying that, it's you've got one of the best strikers to ever live in Muhammad Ali, and then you've got someone like Mayweather, who's probably one of the best defensive boxers. So you've got a pretty good matchup there. Ali's going to take it. Of course, he's going to take it, right?
Ali's going to take it.
Why are you looking for? What are you looking for here? Yeah, why are you looking for affirmation? I've never seen somebody so sure and so uncertain at the same time.
Because Floyd is such a good defensive boxer.
Yeah, but are we saying that they're coming in at the same weight? Or
no, we're talking about
as they are. Okay. Pound for pound. Okay, so it's not them fighting each other in a ring. It's who's the best pound for pound.
No, it's them. Let me clarify here.
Okay.
It's basically if whoever is randomly matched up and drawn goes head to head in a no holds barred fight.
Muhammad Ali is going to absolutely kill him.
Okay, and for the purposes of this feature, let's take it as both fighters or both celebrities in their prime. That's what we're doing.
Let's do this. Let's do this because it's going to be pretty obvious when we're dealing with heavyweights and not so heavyweights. I think because we're dealing with pound for pound, it's a measurement of skill rather than a measurement of size. So let's imagine both people are the same size, but they're fighting each other with the skill set that they've got. That's what pound for pound essentially means.
Okay, then I completely remove pound for pound from the equation. because ultimately we've got like light guys, we've got middleweighted guys, and then we've got heavyweights. And when
we can talk about it on.
Look, our first matchup is thrown up. Okay, you've got a heavyweight versus what was Floyd, a super lightweight, or but was, they're not all going to be like that. So for me, what I want this to be is a no holds barred fight between two men as they are.
That's fine. Ali wins hands down, but
Ali.
Because you're talking about a defensive fighter who moves incredibly well in Mayweather, but then you're talking about the best movement artist in the ring of Muhammad Ali. So, he's got him matched there, and he's going to punch a lot harder. When he lands, he's going to hurt him. So, Ali takes that one.
Yeah, Ali's going to take it. Ali's going to take that one. If they both were the same size, what would you say? Let's argue both. Let's argue. Okay, Muhammad Ali's going to take it if they just went head to head as they are. But what if they were the same weight?
If they were the same weight, I would have to argue that Floyd Mayweather was a better boxer than Muhammad Ali. In my mind, Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer that's ever lived. He's not the most enigmatic. He's not the most charismatic, even though he's a character on his own. But you simply cannot argue with his record. Like, he never had a bad day. Think about that. Think about your own life and your own career. And, we've had careers far shorter than his, doing things that are far less dangerous and far less technical. Think about this. You go to the office in your job and you've never had a bad day. How mental is that?
Yeah. It's a perfect career, literally. Imagine doing what you love and you have the perfect career. That's insanity.
Yeah. I don't know though, because Muhammad Ali mentally was a different person, man. Compared to Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, he grew up in boxing because of his dad. I mean, he was in the gym always. Muhammad Ali had a different upbringing, man. He came up during a different time, difficult time. Mentally, I think they're different. I think Muhammad Ali's got him. Either way.
No, I disagree. I think if you comparing that at the same weight, I don't think anyone has what it takes to beat Floyd. I mean, you're talking about, if you're going to talk about the greats, for example, Pacquiao, who stepped into the ring with him, arguably could have fought against Ali if he was in the same weight class. Great, but he just could not take Floyd down. He just had it.
Yeah. Floyd's good.
So Floyd,
he's a really he's
Floyd
good.
in that case.
Floyd's good.
Yeah, he's
okay.
good. He's okay.
He's only replicated a boxing career that was fabled in television history. I'm talking about Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I get it. But yeah, I mean, in this,
Also was the Mayweather was also the richest sportsman of all time until he retired. Came out of retirement, became the richest sportsman of all time again, and then retired again. The man's got a $100 million check framed on his wall. I mean, good times.
Yeah, but come on, that's
nice context, Craig. I love how you always stick to the confines of what we're speaking about.
Yeah, it's Money Mayweather.
Let's move on. Listener question. Sean, I'm going to hand this one over to you. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus Aikido?
Okay, so have either of you actually seen Aikido?
I researched it. It
Okay.
seems dumb.
Yes, I have.
It looks like beautiful dancing. It does. No, so Aikido uses the concept of momentum, and it also has joint locks. I suppose the clearest distinction between the two arts would be the fact that Jiu-Jitsu takes place on the ground, BJJ takes place on the ground predominantly, and Aikido takes place on the feet predominantly. That's not to say that either one doesn't dabble in standing or on the ground. The problem is with Aikido, you are still dealing with a non-resisting opponent. The same issue we had with Krav Maga, because the joint locks employed. Have you go watch some Aikido? You'll see the joint locks that are employed. For example, an arm bar, a standing arm bar, where you grab the wrist and the arm is essentially out straight, and you've got a good grip on the arm, where you could theoretically, if the person was standing in one place, resisted your push to go that way, you could break his arm. But the problem is the person is moving like you want them to move, and if you try to use that in real life, it's not going to work, unfortunately.
One of the things one of the things I noticed from the training videos once again was Aikido training is also it's just static. Krav Maga training, where the guy's standing there waiting to come in, and then he's telling him what to do, and then when he comes in, he flips him.
Yeah, well, there's concepts and principles that are employed in Aikido. It is all about using momentum and movement and using the person's weight against them, essentially, which is great. It's really cool concepts. Steven Seagal is a master at it.
He's a 7th Dan black belt.
Yeah, so let's not argue that he's any sort of a hero in the martial arts community. A lot of people actually rip him off for the fact. For the shit that he's pulled off. I mean, he said that he actually taught, what was his name? Spider Silva. He taught Spider Silva one of his moves. And Anderson Silva
and he claimed that he helped Lyoto Machida perfect the front kick.
Yeah. So
UFC
I mean,
fighter.
okay, that's the type of people that Aikido attracts. So I mean, that explains it all to you. It is cool. As far as traditional martial arts go, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful art to watch. It does use real principles. The only problem is there is no real training against resisting opponents. Now, whether or not you want to be doing that is a different story, because it might just be a martial art where you're using it as a meditative process, and at very least to have an understanding of momentum and have an understanding of control points and leverage. And that would absolutely in a fight help you.
So what you're saying is, from a self-defense perspective, it's shite.
I mean, if you go up against someone who's never fought a day in their life, I mean, you could stand a chance because you've got these principles down. But unless you have been dealing with punches and kicks and someone trying to actually strangle you, you're not going to fare very well in a real life situation, unfortunately, both physically and mentally, because one, you wouldn't have physically prepared for a resisting opponent, but secondly, you wouldn't have had the stresses of having to deal with an attacker with bad intentions coming towards you. So that's I suppose the biggest issue.
It goes back to, like you said, the debate that we had around the effectiveness of Krav Maga in real life situations, in terms of the fact that you can't really pressure test it in real life simulated environments. Now, one thing that's interesting about Aikido, and it speaks to the points you've just made, is that it was actually formulated as an art where practitioners could and should protect the attacker from injury. And that's where the whole flowing motion of almost looks like it's choreographed comes in, right? That the martial art was specifically designed that way. I've got a quote here from the founder of Aikido. So he basically remarked that the defender must be willing to receive 99% of an opponent's attack and stare death in the face, which I guess speaks to the fact around manipulating momentum and letting attacks come onto you in Aikido, as opposed to blocking, defending, and avoiding. But then he also says that the primary goal in the practice of Aikido is to overcome oneself instead of cultivating violence or aggressiveness. So, you're talking about a martial art that has been formulated to put yourself almost in danger in terms of how you use movement, how you use momentum, and how you ultimately defend yourself. But then one that's also formulated not to hurt people that you're fighting against or that are coming to attack you.
I mean, that's admirable, but I mean, what fights aren't you in where you're taking 100% of the person's aggression? Every fight. So the fact that he said that is nice, but it's true for any martial art. You need to be able to deal with 100% of the person's aggression. What you decide to do with their pressure is something else. Again, I mean, these concepts that they use in Aikido is not dissimilar to things that we would use in BJJ, is using the person's weight against them, using their momentum against them, misdirection or making them go this way and then redirecting that momentum in a different direction, because that's going to be the way that you either take them to the ground, or it might be the way that you're luring them into a submission. So it's, I mean, I really like it. I mean, I at one point wanted to get into Aikido just because I love the flow of it. I love the traditional aspect of it. But again, it's not practical. And
Comes down to one of those where you say, is it a useful martial art?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's the thing, right? I guess we've established that in the context of self-defense and mixed martial arts, no. However, once again, from a traditional perspective, Aikido is actually more of a philosophy than a syllabus of martial arts or an effective combat sport martial arts. In fact, Aikido isn't a sport. As far as I know, there's demonstrations, but it's more of an art form. It's more of a philosophy, which lends itself towards peace more than anything else. Peace and the aspects of traditional martial arts that we discussed in the first episode around self-discovery, around self-awareness, around building self-confidence, that journey of awareness and self-discovery that you go through. So if you guys, in terms of it being an art, the fact that it's not useful doesn't discredit it from being a martial art.
And I'm slowly coming up. I'm slowly coming over to that point of view where my chosen martial art is BJJ. But if someone chooses Aikido, that's fine. I mean, if
depends what you want, right? Depends what you're looking for out of training in martial arts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a beautiful art to practice. I mean, if you watch those Aikido demonstrations, it's not choreographed necessarily. It looks choreographed, but they are actually using joint locks. They are actually using pivotal points. They are using leverage to control a person and take them to the ground. Yes, they have got a compliant attacker, but they still need to know what to do when the person's coming at them. So it's I mean, it's a good practice to do if you're looking for something lighter than BJJ, or something that is going to be, like we say, more practical in a self-defense scenario. But again, not all martial arts are meant to be practical.
Well, they also use the argument similar to Krav Maga in that some of their techniques are simply not allowed in MMA, which is why
it's banned.
No one from Aikido has ever, no one with an Aikido base has ever seen a lot of success in MMA, because they say that 70% of Aikido is small joint manipulation, which is banned in MMA and banned in the UFC, for example.
Yeah, fingers. So small joint, by the way, is when you're manipulating individual fingers. So jiu-jitsu, it's against the rules to do that, because it's very easy to break a finger, and you don't want to be breaking fingers every time you go training. So yeah, it's I can understand that, definitely, and I can understand how small joint manipulation is dangerous. Not dangerous to the point where it's going to kill you. But dangerous in the sense that it's not going to be practical to be pulling those moves off every time you actually train it. But when someone starts telling me, well, we can't actually use 70% of our moves because it's too dangerous, it's going to kill people. Okay, come at me and trying to kill me with your Aikido, please.
Again, there's,
Yeah, so I mean, if you guys want to check out a little bit more about the traditional martial arts versus useful martial arts, as Sean calls them, go to the blog. There is an article on there that Sean wrote. You guys can continue the argument there and bring it to the social platforms if you'd like. Go to strictlyfighters.com to check that out.
Yeah. And also
the
comment your views below, guys. We want to know what you guys think about Aikido and BJJ as well. It's always interesting to hear what everyone thinks. Sorry, Jay.
I'll happily tell you that you're wrong. So carry on.
The last part of this is basically there's merit and value in every single martial art in some form or way from a self-defense perspective. So even if you had to bring, even if you trained in Aikido and you transitioned into MMA, there are still things in Aikido that are going to stand you in some type of good stead. It might, it's not the best base. It's not a severely threatening or super useful base. That's what we've established. But for example, like Sean, like you're saying, the human movement aspect, the understanding of movement, the understanding of momentum, the understanding of and mastery of how to redirect energy, like that could, that's an important thing in martial arts. And I remember Conor McGregor used to train with a guy called Ido Portal, who was his movement coach.
I love him, dude.
And basically, took him through or trained him in a whole bunch of, really, really, what's the word? Uncharacteristic or unusual, unconventional movement techniques. They would like work with tennis balls. They would do shit on the beach in the sand. If you go on YouTube and Google Ido Portal and Conor McGregor, there's some really cool clips of the unconventional stuff that they do, that if you saw them doing it out of context, you'd look at them and be like, what the fuck? Like, these guys come from a park high off tick. But, the way that translates, if you watch Conor and the way that he moves, like, he is a phenomenal student of human movement, proponent of human movement. Yeah. So usefulness,
you can see it in
in
his
a way,
fighting.
But,
yeah. You can see Ido Portal's, by the way, the spelling on that is IDO, one word, Portal, Portal. It's a weird name. He's Portal. But he is some really, really cool things there. It's like, it's almost like moving yoga. It's really, really cool. But anyway, yeah.
Check it out. Intensh, let us know what you think. Right, boys, on to the biggest fight in British boxing history that has just recently been announced a couple of days ago. No date or venue confirmed just yet, but we are talking about the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world in boxing between Anthony Oluwafemi Aloseni Joshua and Tyson Luke Fury. Now, this is a unification bout for the ages, right? It's being billed as the biggest fight in modern heavyweight boxing. And in some spaces, people are even saying that this is the biggest fight that exists in boxing in the world today. This is a fight that's going to transcend the sport of boxing. It's going to transcend the realm of combat sports, and it's going to break into mainstream media, into mainstream culture. And I guarantee you that with the build-up over the next 3 to 4 or 5 months, however long it takes to get this done and to get these two men into a ring together, you are going to want to watch this fight when it comes about.
Yeah, it's bigger than boxing, man.
So a little bit of context before we get into the different views that we have. It is a 200 million pound 2-fight deal, with both fighters set to receive over 100 million pounds, with a deal that is eclipsing that of Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao's historic bout back in 2015. The first fight will be for an even 50-50 split purse, with the winner then getting a 60-40 split for the second bout. Now, the biggest thing about this fight is that it is for the title of Undisputed. Now, basically how boxing works is there are 4 main official sanctioning bodies in boxing, right? Which essentially means that in any given weight division, you can have multiple champions, because each of the different sanctioning bodies have their own world champions, unless there has been somebody who is good enough to unify those belts. Now, the scenario that we have on our hands is that Anthony Joshua is the WBA, IBF, and WBO heavyweight champion of the world. So he holds 3 of the 4 main belts in boxing in the heavyweight division, right? Tyson Fury is the WBC heavyweight champion. So he holds one of the 4 main belts in heavyweight boxing. And now for the first time in the 4 belt era, so since the development of the 4 main sanctioning bodies, this fight will be for the unification of all 4 belts, right? This hasn't happened before. The last person to be called the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world was also a Brit. He's the Boxing Hall of Famer, Lennox Lewis. People of the previous generation, we can call it that, will know him very well. He beat Mike Tyson. He beat a whole bunch of the most famous heavyweights in the world. And he was last recognized as the undisputed unified heavyweight champion of the world back in 2000.
Yeah,
so
for
since
sure,
then,
our key demographic
this hasn't existed.
they're all listening.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
So let's get some thoughts on the fight, boys. We know it's still early days, but it has been in the works for years. It's been a frustrating back and forth between the 2 camps, between their promoters, between their management, between themselves. They've had a war of words. Again, if you go on YouTube, these guys, there's probably about an hour and a half's worth of trash talking and mudslinging. It's beautiful.
So tell me, Jay, so who wins this and why is it AJ?
I was going to say,
Craig, you've been waiting to say that
all day
since Saturday night. All day.
Jay, let's flip this around. You're the boxer, so what do you think is going to happen here? What is your analysis of this whole situation?
I've tried to produce an objective analysis of this fight. And the simple truth is that I'm struggling. And I have been for the past year and a half. Now, the heart says AJ. And I'll tell you why. It's because I'm loyal to him by the virtue of the fact that he is the one who made me fall in love with boxing. Like most of you will know, I've been a lifelong martial artist, but never really been into the sport of boxing until probably about 3 or 4 years ago when I started watching AJ's rise through the ranks to become the heavyweight champion of the world. His boxing style, his charisma, everything around him. He's been voted the most marketable athlete in the world once, maybe on 2 separate occasions. But for me, he is the complete package, right? He is a very technically gifted boxer, contrary to what a lot of people are thinking because of his comparison to Tyson Fury. But he's a technically gifted boxer. He is a clever boxer. He has high fight IQ. He is an athlete of note, right? He's an Olympic gold medalist. And he has knockout power. So for me,
he's got them arms.
If you're a technically gifted boxer and you pair that with having ridiculous one-punch knockout power and knockout artistry, for me, that's the complete package, right? So I'm loyal to him by virtue of the fact that, he is the guy who made me fall in love with boxing. And, I think a lot of people are sleeping on AJ because of his loss to Andy Ruiz. Up until then, he was the next best thing. He was the biggest thing in boxing. Everyone loved him. Everyone wanted to see him do well. And after he lost to Andy Ruiz, people started hating on AJ and people started doubting his ability in a big, big way. He came back to beat Ruiz in boxing.
Yeah, he
outboxed Ruiz.
Yeah.
So that's the one side of things. The other side of things is, to me, Tyson Fury is a better boxer. If you talk about the sweet science of boxing, if you talk about the technicalities of the sport, the intricacies of the sport, there is no better boxer in the world today in the heavyweight division, let's say, than Tyson Fury. He is a freak of nature. The way that he moves, the fight IQ that he has, the speed that he has as a heavyweight is uncanny, and it shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, with that body, it doesn't make any sense the way he moves, for sure.
No, and so all of the things that he has, and he's also got a ridiculously high fight IQ. Now, he is an incredibly intelligent and talented fighter, and that's what makes this matchup so incredible. I've been thinking about it for the last year and a half since Tyson Fury made his ridiculous comeback. If you don't know who Tyson Fury is and what his story is, there's too much to get into it on this podcast. Go and watch the documentary.
Hasn't he got a podcast with Joe Rogan? I think he has.
I think he's on a couple of episodes, and he's fascinating to listen to.
Yeah.
He's got an incredible story.
Jay, you're sidestepping hard. Yeah, no heart, no mind. If you had to put down $1,000 now, what is it? Who is it?
Make me do it.
You gotta do it.
You gotta do it.
I'm gonna sidestep even more, and I'm gonna let you guys go first, and then we can come back to me afterwards.
So for me, if Wilder can take him 12 rounds, and Wilder's just not a boxer. Like he's one punch power. He does not have the IQ of Fury. He doesn't have the IQ of AJ.
No stamina.
He doesn't have the stamina. If he can take Fury 12 rounds, AJ has the ability to end it earlier or beat him on 12 rounds.
Let's be fair though as well. When AJ lost against Ruiz, he wasn't 100%. Like there was a lot of debate around his actual conditioning, whether or not he was actually at his peak when he actually walked in there. He just didn't look it. But yeah, like you said, man, he came back and got that title back. Ruiz, I think he got a bit shell shocked once he won the title. He went crazy partying, and then he just lost all vision or lost all sort of perspective. Dude, if I had to choose a winner here, I'd probably go with AJ. Like you said, I don't know. But
have you
mainly because he's been the most active, I suppose.
Also, he hasn't stopped training since his last fight. Apparently, he said he hasn't left the gym. Like that's where he lives, knowing that he wants to unify these belts. So he reminds me of a Ronaldo who will put in the graft to be the best, and we all know how that story ended. Well, hasn't ended, but
so who's your choice, Craig?
Oh, AJ. I rate he will take it.
How's he get it done, Craig?
And I think he'll knock him out. 10th round.
10th round knockout.
Yeah.
Sean, what's your call and how's he get it done?
He won't be able to go the distance with him. Tyson Fury is just too technical. He wouldn't be able to go the distance and win. He'd have to get a knockout. I'd probably say pretty early on. I'd say probably in the fifth round knockout for AJ, because he's going to run him to the end and he's going to beat him if he lets the fight last that long.
Well, let's talk about the conditioning quick. What's the story about Fury on 12 pints a day? I've
heard this, man. Is it mind games or is he?
Yeah, exactly.
He's done it before, right? He's after he beat Klitschko and won the world championship and the world heavyweight championship back in 2016, I think it was. He went on a massive bender and developed huge mental problems, huge mental health issues, dealing with depression, battling with depression and anxiety, and basically became a fat, white, crazy mental drug addict who would drink himself silly in the pub, using all sorts of drugs. And if you listen to his story, he battles this type of thing every day, and the gym and training is what keeps him sane. It's what keeps him healthy. It's what keeps him going. You would think over the last maybe 2 years and how he's built himself back up to where he's got, especially now with this AJ fight, the biggest fight of his career coming up. That's what it is. I don't care what anyone says. That he would be being very careful with this type of thing. So I don't think it's true. I think it's mind games. I think he's just fucking about. I hope that's the case.
If it's true, it's massively disrespectful to the fight. It's you're coming to entertain millions, and you're coming to show respect to a guy who's earned his way to be there. And if that is true, AJ will clean him out even earlier, because it's small margins when you're coming to the best of the best.
Look, I'll put it this way for you. Tyson Fury genuinely believes that he could go 14 pints in a pub and fuck around for the next 3 weeks, have a 6-week training camp, and he's still good enough to beat Anthony Joshua. He genuinely believes that. Yeah. But if I know anything about the man, he will put in as much work as Anthony Joshua will.
Yeah. He knows what bottom feels like, man.
Yeah, I don't think it's true. I hope it's not true.
So who goes into this the underdog, by the way?
I don't know what the bookies are saying, but based on their past fights, in the last year and a half, I would say. Dude, Anthony Joshua is a major underdog. Like people are sleeping on AJ. People, like after people watched Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder, and fair enough, because okay, I get what you're saying when you say Deontay's not a boxer, but I mean, he was 42-0.
Yeah, I mean, he's a talented guy, knockouts. But when he lands a punch,
you don't. But hold on. You don't
41
knockouts. You don't get to 42 fights undefeated with 41 knockouts in the heavyweight division.
Yeah,
by being, you know what I mean, by being a dunce. So yes, he's not as technically gifted a boxer as either of them, but I mean, he he's a big deal. So I get why people are saying that, but I think Joshua's loss to Ruiz kind of faded his star power in a big way. And people, even after he went and got the titles back from Ruiz, and then he won his last fight in a ridiculously convincing fashion over a highly ranked and very well regarded opponent, people are sleeping on him. And I think it's just because I don't know actually.
People are putting too much emphasis on the undefeated titles. It's killing names, man.
Tyson Fury's undefeated.
Yeah.
If anyone didn't know. So Anthony Joshua is his record is 24-1. So he's won 24 fights. He's lost one fight, and he has 22 knockouts. So his knockout ratio is 88%. So he knocks out 88% of the opponents that he fights. Whereas Tyson Fury's record is 30 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw. So he is undefeated, and he's got 21 knockouts. So his knockout ratio is 68%. So you can see there why your calls are, if it goes the distance, there's no way that Anthony Joshua is going to outbox Tyson Fury. And I agree with that.
Can you see Fury knocking out AJ though?
Boxing is boxing, mate. Anyone has a puncher's chance. Like we said in a previous episode, if you land that fist on the button, you can't condition your chin.
Well, that's what happened to AJ in the Ruiz fight. He just landed one that landed perfectly, and that ended. So it's, oh man.
So tell me something. How does the undisputed titles work? So now once, say for example, okay, one of them is going to win, and now one of them is going to hold all 4 titles. If Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury goes up against another heavyweight, does that then, are all 4 belts on the line then? Or does it depend on the promotion?
So as far as I understand it, and feel free, anyone, to correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody is a unified champion, what basically happens is each of the sanctioning bodies have mandatory challenges. So let's say, for example, Anthony Joshua wins. And his next fight, he has a champion, or his next fight, there is a mandatory challenger in the IBF, for example. Basically, Joshua then has to honor that mandatory challenger and fight that person, and put his IBF belt on the line. If he does not do that, he has to vacate that title. Now, what happens often though, is that if a fighter holds multiple belts, that fighter can agree to put all of them on the line, even though he's only fighting the mandatory challenger from one of the sanctioning bodies that he holds the belt in. So as far as I know, it's a choice that gets made between the boxers, between the sanctioning bodies, between the promoters, between the management teams of each fighter.
Okay, so it's pretty detailed, intricate sort of process.
I don't like it. I think MMA has got this right in that obviously there's different promotions in MMA, so it's not necessarily the same thing or the same structure, but because we have a premier promotion in the UFC, if you're an undisputed champion in the UFC, it's usually fairly safe to call that person the best fighter in combat sports in their division. Whereas in boxing, it's more difficult because you could have 4 different champions of the welterweight division.
Yeah.
How? Okay, so then you know what I mean. How does that work?
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. Admittedly, I'm not that into boxing as much as I am into BJJ, but I love it. I mean, whenever I get a chance to watch any of the big names fighting, Canelo, what's his name, Mayweather, was that what's his name, Lomachenko, dude. Oh my God, I love watching him fight. He actually lost a fight recently.
Listen, yeah, we are circling this. Jay, give us your answer. Jeez, like.
It's hard because like I love both guys. Like I love both fighters so much. And even like on a personal level, like with their stories and the way that they've both inspired me to become a boxer. And I think that's what's kind of holding me back. And I rate both of them so highly. That's why it makes it so difficult for me. But okay, now
put your balls on the line.
I'm gonna go against my head here, and I'm gonna say that I think Anthony Joshua gets a knockout.
Hey.
It's tough. I mean, did you guys see the way Tyson Fury got up off the deck in Undertaker-like fashion in the first fight with Deontay Wilder? You know, he's a fighter, man. He's the Gypsy King. He's got fight blood in him decades back, generations back. But I just think my head is telling me to go with Fury because based on his past performances and his technical boxing ability, I feel like he is a superior boxer, but I'm convincing myself to remember who Anthony Joshua actually is and how good this guy is, and that he has the full package when it comes to boxing. So I'm going to go with an AJ knockout. If I had to place my balls on the block, I would call fairly late stoppage. I would say he gets it done in the seventh or eighth round. So let's see how these predictions change as the build-up starts now, and we get closer and closer to the fight, which, by the way, is billed to be in Saudi Arabia as the front runner. They have had 8 or 9 different sites. They've had 8 or 9 different sites pitch for the fight. Unfortunately, it seems like it won't be in the UK, even though it's 2 English boxers because of COVID rules. But yeah, they're targeting that, and the bookies are saying that it's likely to happen in May. Or sometime in the Northern Hemisphere summer. So May to July. Yeah.
That's actually really soon. That's cool. I'm looking forward to that.
I may have to jump over the border and just go say, how's it? And go go watch a little fight. It makes
I think you know what? I think maybe we'll all fly in for that. We'll see.
Imagine.
Sean, talking about you not being a particularly massive fan of boxing, but you know, obviously you'll watch the big fights. Let's talk about another big fight. So for those people who don't know, we have a celebrity fight coming up. And I call it that because it involves a man by the name of Jake Paul. Now, if you don't know, Jake Paul is a YouTuber. He is of YouTube fame. He has 20 million subscribers on YouTube. And he has recently...
That's more than a small country. That's crazy.
He's recently become a professional boxer. And now he is going up against a mixed martial artist by the name of Ben Askren, Ben Funky Askren, also a character of the sport for sure. So now let me break it down for you real quick. And then I've got some questions for you guys. Now, Ben Askren is a mixed martial artist. He was the welterweight champion in Bellator, as well as one championship. He also fought in the UFC. He only had a couple of fights, but he fought against, top opponents. He was a US Olympic team wrestler, freestyle wrestler. He was a submission wrestling world champion. The guy is wrestling royalty, right? Yeah. He is lauded. He is applauded. He is acclaimed in the world of wrestling and even in the sport of mixed martial arts. He was a world champion mixed martial artist.
In Bellator, yeah. One championship.
Yeah, both,
yeah.
Multiple promotion champion.
Yeah, because the UFC swapped Mighty Mouse for Ben Askren. What a shitty swap. Sorry, but that's such a shitty swap.
That's the worst trade deal that's ever happened.
Maybe in the history of ever.
Anyway.
The big but here is that he's not a striker, right? He's a wrestler. He's a grappler. And I'd even go so far as to say his striking is fucking shit. If you go and watch videos of the guy, he's I struggle to say it because he's a professional and world champion mixed martial artist, but if you watch him, you'll see what I mean. Now he's fighting Jake Paul, who is, like we said, an influencer, a YouTuber, a celebrity who's recently become a pro boxer. He had one amateur fight, if I'm not mistaken, which he won, and he's had 2 professional boxing matches, one against another YouTuber, and another against a basketball player who had never fought professionally before either. So he's fought no one, but by the same token, he's won all of his fights, and he's knocked people out. And if you go watch him, like, you can see the guy's got hands, right? He's not a slouch.
He knows what he's doing in the ring.
He's not a moron. And he's also got a significant height and reach advantage over Ben. But here's the thing, right? And this is what Joe Rogan and Dana White and the like are saying. He's a fucking YouTuber. Okay. And yes, he's won a couple of pro boxing matches, but he's fighting against guys who haven't fought before. He's fighting against other YouTubers. He's fighting against a guy who was a pro basketball player, right? And you're talking about like mixed martial arts royalty that he's going up against, a guy who's tough as fucking nails. Dana White bet $1 million that Ben Askren would win this fight. So Ben's got to rep the real fighters here. He's got to rep the world of MMA. He's got to rep, the definition of true athletes. But he's got 1 month to train. So here's what I want to know from you guys. What do you guys think about this whole trend of celebrities crossing over into MMA, into boxing, into the world of combat sports? What do you think is going to happen in this fight? And then what do you think about how well this will do versus, for example, something like the Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua match?
Yeah. Do you want to go, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, for me, controversial. I think Jake Paul takes it. I think he's better standing up. He shows far more potential standing up as a boxer. I mean, if you did this in a different fighting ring, Ben Askren takes it. But in the boxing ring, I think Jake Paul takes it. They've got 2 very different things on the line here. It's Ben Askren's trying to fight for all fighters, and Jake Paul's fighting for a reputation to build on a platform that already exists, that will only become 10 times bigger and stronger when he beats a real fighter. So he's not a slouch in training right now. I'm telling you now, that guy is training his heart out for this fight for that very reason, to prove that he can be multiple things. From the aspect of being a big fight, I have a feeling this could outsell the Tyson Fury fight, purely because...
Not a fucking chance.
You're talking about his 20 million viewers. You're talking about his brothers. How many millions of viewers?
There is absolutely no fucking way in hell that will ever happen. There's no way.
So a lot of
I'm willing to
said,
bet you any amount of money.
So a lot of people once said this. There's this fucking idiot that lives on Wall Street, owns hotels. He earned his money off the back of his dad, and he became the president of the strongest country in the world. There's a lot of things that they say won't happen, but my God, that could happen with the amount of followers.
How much you want to bet?
It's a different generation. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, the purists, there's a different generation of fighters watching that. When you talk about Jake Paul, there's a whole subculture watching that fight. People who have never watched a fight in their lives will dial in to watch that because it's Jake Paul getting into the ring.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
I mean, it's you're gonna have that overlap of Jake Paul fans, boxing fans. That's the beauty of what's happening here. Sorry, I just almost knocked my computer off. So this is another case of McGregor versus Mayweather. You've got someone who is let's look at the Mayweather fight. You have someone in McGregor is probably one of the best mixed martial artists in the world, and he's a striker. Okay, he's a striker.
He's a boxer. He comes from a boxing background.
He started in boxing. Then you've got Mayweather, who is a specialist in boxing. Now, obviously to a lesser degree, let's look at Jake Paul and Ben Askren. Ben Askren is a mixed martial artist, again, royalty. But Jake Paul is a specialist. He's been focusing on boxing training, fighting different people. I'm with Craig. I think Jake Paul will take this only because of his because he's been specializing in boxing and he's been really, really training for that. And like you said, he's got hands, man. He's quick. So in a wrestling match, in an MMA match, Ben takes it. In a boxing match, Jake Paul takes it, I think. In terms of which is going to do better, I don't know. I think
I can categorically tell you right now.
I'm of the opinion that Jake Paul, Ben Askren might outsell Tyson. I'm not sure. Just to see, I like that opinion.
Of grandeur.
Jay, I like that opinion. Just think of this. You've got the boxing world dialing in because they're like, fuck this. This cannot be happening. You've got the whole MMA world dialing in because they got to say, Ben Askren is fighting for us to maintain that we need to maintain a semblance of credibility. And then you've got everyone else because everyone knows Jake Paul. Yeah. Everyone knows Jake Paul.
Let me tell you a little bit about the sanctity of sport. Okay?
it will destroy it.
Let me give you a little lesson. Now, the previous YouTube fights that they've had with Jake Paul's brother Logan Paul and KSI, which was the first of its kind, which Eddie Hearn promoted, right? Anthony Joshua's promoter with Matchroom Sport, Matchroom Boxing promoted. And it did very, very well. A lot of people tuned in to watch, right? It was a pay-per-view success. But it was absolutely nowhere near the top pay-per-view performances of all time, right? And that was bigger. That was a bigger thing. Like the Logan Paul KSI boxing match, because it was the first of its kind, two YouTubers, professional YouTubers going up in a professional boxing match against each other. The build-up to that was huge for like 3 months. I didn't watch it. I didn't even end up watching it because, to be fair, I couldn't give a shit about these two YouTubers. Like, to me, they're not boxers, they're not fighting. So that's part of why I'm so adamant about this is based on history. It didn't come close. It's a non-starter, right? It's a pseudo sporting event. Now, okay, you've got Jake Paul, who has proven himself to be, you're not going to watch a complete moron fucking around in the ring, right? He's got something. Plus, he's fighting against a mixed martial artist who is world famous. So fair enough, I give you that. But again, the boxing world is not tuning into this match. People from our generation and below us, yes. But that's what percentage of that is in terms of the entire boxing demographic? What percentage does it make up? Right? I would argue not more than 50%. So the boxing world is not tuning into this. They've watched Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. They've seen a few of these kind of crossovers now. They're not tuning into this. I can guarantee you that. And even if they did, you're talking about going up against the biggest boxing match in recent history. Let me quantify this for you. The 3 biggest pay-per-views in combat sports history. All right. The third one was Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. That was an MMA fight in the UFC. That did 2.5 million buys in 2018. This is according to Business Insider. So don't fucking sue me if I get this wrong. The second highest pay-per-view event of all time, or pay-per-view buys, was Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, right? Which did 4.3 million buys in 2017. That was a boxing match. The biggest fight to date in combat sports history is still Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao in 2015, which did 4.6 million buys. Right now, if you go through the top 10, they're all professional fights between professional fighters. Logan Paul and Jake Paul are in the top 50, so they're there. People are watching, right? 20 million subscribers on YouTube. That's not a fucking game.
He only needs,
but it doesn't come
conversion
close.
rate.
It doesn't come close to a true sporting event between two true athletes.
No, I agree with that. I agree with the sanctity of it. Sean, you're muted for some reason, so you can stay quiet. It's okay.
Love business calls on Zoom.
So it's the sanctity of it I agree. It's pure. I mean, I wanted to outsell the Logan Paul fight, the Jake Paul fight, but like I said, he needs a 25% conversion rate just on his own following to hit that record. That's insanity.
But remember, you're not just talking about views. We're talking about pay-per-view. We're talking about people who are willing to part with their money to watch these bouts. You could never quantify how many people actually go and watch a fight.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I just don't know. Sean,
I do agree with.
Are you there? No. No.
Oh, no.
Okay. No.
Oh no.
Okay.
We've lost
Sean.
We've lost Sean House. For fuck's sake, Sean, get it together.
Yeah, we'll give you a moment while we finish the conversation of it. His opinion didn't matter anyway.
I do agree with both of you boys, though, in that I'm going to go against my better judgment here, and against the sanctity of athletic sport, and say that I think Jake Paul is going to beat Ben Askren in a boxing match. I hope that doesn't. In fact, I do hope that comes back to bite me in the ass, and that we see that a real fighter who's tough as fucking nails can actually hang in there and potentially even beat a YouTuber who's only been fighting for I don't know however long.
Yeah.
But let's see.
The problem is
Sean,
when you watch Ben Askren, you just can't see it. It's just so bad on his feet.
No, you can't.
Sean,
we need to do our pound for pound celebrity deathmatch.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, we can hear you.
Oh, he's back.
Your audio is terrible. So for the second week in a row, Sean's
fucking around.
Correct.
He's like, my God.
While we wait, I'm going to go ahead and get the random matchup generator ready for our pound for pound celebrity deathmatch. So what this is the same as the beginning with all the greatest martial arts artists of all time, but it's with celebrities. So people who are movie stars and artists and fucking YouTubers and influencers and whatever, that have dabbled in martial arts or are actually martial artists. Most people probably won't even know. Okay, so here we go. I am clicking the draw button. Imagine that.
What's that?
Our celebrity deathmatch group 1 is Jim Carrey.
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you, Sean. Can you hear us?
Yeah, it looks like my headset fucked out. It's fine.
No,
okay, you're ready
without it. It's okay.
We've got Jim Carrey versus Logan Paul.
Putting back on.
Jim Carrey versus Logan Paul.
Yeah, yes. Jim Carrey versus
Logan Paul.
What's Jim Carrey's history? What was he trained in?
I'm honestly not too sure, but I know that he's done. I know that he's dabbled. He's a dabbler.
Oh, he dabbled.
He's dabbled in, I think, karate or Brazilian jiu-jitsu or taekwondo.
Okay, so Logan Paul is just boxing, right?
Well, yeah, he's had 1 or 2 pro boxing matches.
Okay, so you go first.
I mean, yeah, Logan Paul, right? I think he beats Jim Carrey by virtue of the fact that he's more of a martial artist.
In what type of fighting ring, right? It's
no holds barred. It's no holds barred. It's who can fuck who up.
Okay.
Logan Paul.
Yeah, it's got to be Logan Paul, right? I mean, but listen, if Jim Carrey had to prep for something like that, you're talking about a method kind of guy here. He's going to get out of hand.
He's a crazy motherfucker. Yeah,
exactly.
Like the man's unhinged.
I think did you watch the documentary with me on the movie he made where he got himself into that role of it's about that famous actor.
And did he ever get out of it? Yeah, I don't think he ever got out of that role.
It took him a year. It took him a year to fully drop the role. Like he said he was destroyed for a full year, and he didn't have memory of what happened during that role. If you gave them a training camp before that, I mean, Jim Carrey would come in as a different human being, but I think he'd still lose.
Training camp aside, mate, demented and ridiculously talented people like that scare me. I'll give you that much.
Yeah, he's gonna. I mean, he's gonna scare anyone who walks into the ring with you because you don't know what you're walking in against. It's a strange human being.
Outside bet. Still go with Logan Paul.
Yeah. I'd probably still go with it purely from a professional training aspect. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to go up against Jim Carrey. The man's strange. Jeez, like.
Okay, boys, what we're going to do is we're going to cap it off there. The last thing that I do want to talk about very quickly is that this weekend coming up, the UFC Fight Night Vegas 22, we actually have a new South African making his octagon debut. Safas represent.
Oh, yeah.
He is a flyweight. His name is JP Boyce. The man is from Brakpan, and you can tell by his mullet. I'll give you that much as well. But anyway, he is fighting in the flyweight division versus Bruno Silva. He is also an acclaimed wrestler. He has a 9-2 record in MMA, comes from the EFC, and he's currently on a 5-fight win streak. Now, the cool thing is his wife, Cheyenne Bass, who's American, is a strawweight MMA fighter as well, and she is also making her debut in the UFC this weekend. So it's the first time in history that a husband and wife are making their octagon debuts in the UFC on the same card, and one of them is South African. How cool is that?
Making history.
Yeah, sick.
Can't wait. Both of them come from Dana White's Contender Series, so they won contracts through that. So very cool. There's an epic feature on them on the UFC's YouTube channel. So go and check it out. And if you're a Safa, go and support the boy. He's the third South African fighter on the UFC's roster at the minute. So we'll definitely be watching and keeping an eye out for him.
For sure.
That's killer, man. And one final thing, guys. Don't forget, we want to hear what you have to say about what we talk about. Drop it in the comments. Drop it on our social page, Strictly Fighters. Give us
and like and subscribe, guys.
Subscribe.
Can you still hear me? Is this coming through clear?
Yes,
we can, but we don't want to.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, man. So once again, if you subscribe, at least it lets you know each week as we drop this podcast. And then we'd like to hear from you again. Cool, man. That's
all
it
right,
from
Craig.
us.
Craig, from your from your monotone monologues, and Sean from your voice and audio issues, we are signing off, and sayonara. Nice to know ya.
Cheers,
boys. Howdies.